Hey guys, so today I'm going to teach you how you can take your data files and transform all of your variables that are strings like this and like these so that Jamovi or SPSS actually could read them because SPSS and Jamovi can't do analyses on string data. It doesn't make sense to it. So you can see we have a few different variables here. We have our condition, we have age, which is fine because it's already numeric. We have our survey questions that I made. You can see they're all on a Likert scale. We have race, year in college, and gender. Now, the first thing that we want to do before we put this file into Jamovi is actually create a new column and name it ID. And we just want to number this all the way down. And this is because each row is a specific person. So we want to know that in this row, person 1 had the condition odd, they were 22, they were a male, so you just want to make sure you do that. Now if you just type out a few numbers and then highlight them and hover until you get this little black fixation cross, you can pull down until you reach the end. So now we can see that we have 39 participants. So I'm just going to save this data file. I'm going to go over to Jamovi and then I'm going to say import. You want to make sure here that you're importing an Excel file so they show up. And I named this practice data. Now you can see ID started over here. They have these 3 variables. Jamovi always puts A, B, C. You just want to highlight them, right click, and hit delete variables. So now we have all of our variables in here, and we need to transform these now into actual numeric data. So what we're going to do is go to the data tab. I'm going to start with condition. I'll highlight that, and I'm going to say transform. It's okay to call it condition 2, whatever you want to call it. And we can say in the description, transformed condition variable. And you can see that it just copied it right now. The source variable is condition. You can change that if you want, but we're just doing condition for now. And the reason why I just copied it is because we actually didn't use any type of transform. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here and go to create new transformation. So now, it's always nice to put stuff in the description. So we're going to say odd equals 1 and even equals 2. This way we just always keep it very organized and we won't forget what 1 and 2 is. It's kind of easier for odd and even because it's not an even number, but in some cases you might forget. So we're going to say add recode condition, and we want to say if the source, so if this column, if something in it equals, and when you are doing this in Jamovi, you have to do a double equal sign. If it equals the word odd, we have to put it in parentheses because, or quotation marks, because if you don't put it in quotation marks, then it won't realize it's reading a string. So if the source equals odd, I want to use the number 1. And I'm going to add another condition and say if the source equals even, I want a 2. Else we're going to say use a 0, and we're just going to do that because maybe someone didn't answer. And then you just hit your enter or your return key, and now you can see it's transformed. So now we're going to do these 4 survey questions that I created, and if your survey uses the same Likert scale with the same words all throughout, then you're fine. You can actually do these all at once. If it doesn't, then you just have to go in one by one. So what I'm going to do now is highlight all 4, and I'm going to say transform. Now you can see they're all up here, and it's using transform, none, so we have to create a new one. Description. In this case, it'll be a little bit easier. You could write it all out. 1 equals not at all proficient. 2 equals not proficient. And I just made these up. 3 equals proficient. 4 equals somewhat proficient. 5 equals extremely proficient. And 0 equals no answer. So now we're going to have to add all of these into a recode condition, and you have to make sure that you spell it right. So if source equals 1 equals not at all proficient, because that's what I have in this box here, we want to use a 1. if the source equals 2 equals not coefficient, we want to use a 2. And you have to make sure that you do both the quotation marks, otherwise it won't work. Now we can say 3 equals coefficient. We want to use a 3 if 4 equals somewhat proficient. We're going to use 4. And finally, if it equals 5, extremely proficient, we're going to use a 5. Now you could say else use a 0. That would make it, like in this case right here, you can see someone didn't answer, it'll give them a 0. You could just say else use and just have blank. So what you can do, we'll just put a 0 there. We'll say that, they didn't answer, and we'll press the enter key. And now you can see that we have a nice transformation here. It actually did leave this one blank, which is fine. If for some reason someone had like a different answer, it would give a 0. But now we can actually compute different transformations on these. So let's just do these few more examples. So we'll do race. You can make it a little bigger so you can see exactly what it is. So we want to transform. So race, we'll say 1 equals African American. And it doesn't matter what you do. You can pick what number is what number. White, 3 equals. And 4 equals. You might have some people who selected 2. That's totally fine. We'll talk about that in a second. It's not going to really transform because it's going to be both, but that's okay. Let me actually do an example of that. So real quick, we'll say let this person put that, and that's their answer. It's not letting me write it in. It's okay, I'll show you guys that in a minute. So it should do it. Okay, we'll go over that in a minute. So back to what we were doing with race 2, we got to re-highlight it, and we want to create a new transform. So now, if source equals African American, use a 1, and you're just going to keep doing this. Use a 2. Three, and now you can see I made a mistake here. I didn't actually use a quotation mark. So we're just going to go back in and add the quotation mark and hit enter again, and it should work. Here I spelt this wrong. You can see that it didn't transform it. So I just have to go in, add the right letter, hit enter, and now it will work. So you have to be really, really careful. Let's do year in college. 1 equals freshman. Or we'll do the transform first. Transform, year in college 2, 1 equals freshman, 2 equals sophomore, 3 equals junior, and 4 equals senior. If you have another category, you can put 5 equals other. And again, we're going to create a new transform if it equals, and you can see I actually spelt freshman wrong in my survey, so I need to make sure that I'm spelling it that way. And then we'll say sophomore is 2, junior, we'll use 3, senior, we use 4. So senior, I forgot to add in my quotation. You just do it and it's fine. And finally, we'll do gender. Transform 1 equals male, 2 equals female. And these are the transforms that we used previously. We can't use those because it doesn't make any sense to use them. So you're just gonna make a new one. If it equals male, we're gonna do 1. And if it equals female, we'll do a 2. And other, we'll do 3. You see now it recoded them. And I'm actually gonna go back into here and add that in. 3 equals other. And now we have all of our variables in numeric format, which is great. So let me just show you one more thing. I'm going to teach you how to sum the surveys. So some of you have negatively worded questions. So let's say this one right here, how proficient in Excel are you, is negatively worded. But the rest are positively worded, and I need them all to be positively worded. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the numeric version. Make sure I put that it's negatively worded, and I'm going to transform this again, and I'm going to call it how proficient in Excel you recoded, because I'm going to recode the variables. And I'm just taking notes because it's really important that you do take notes, because if you go back to your data set in a week, a month, a year, you might not remember what you did. So I'm going to do a new transform, and how you recode variables is you actually just make each number the opposite. So in this case, if we have a 1, our scale's from 1 to 5, it's actually going to become a 5. If we have a 2, it'll become a 4. If we have a 3, it'll become a 3. You just want to put that so that it codes it over, otherwise it might be blank. Then we have to go the opposite way. If it equals 4, it's going to be 2. And if it equals 5, it's going to be 1. So now you can see 1 will be 5, 2, 4, 3, 3, 4, 2, 5, 1. And we're just going to hit enter. And you can see now that we recoded this to be the proper way. Now you can leave this in here, just make sure that you know that this is the one that you need to use, the recoded version, when we are about to compute this variable. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so now what I'm gonna show you how to do, now that we have all of our variables, is I'm gonna teach you how we can actually go in to these variables that we have right here and average them to make our score on our survey. So the first thing that we really want to do is change these long titles. They're just going to be really difficult. So we're just going to call this one actually, give me 1 second. So I'm actually going to copy this. I'm going to paste it into here so that I know that is what it is, and we're just going to call it Q1 recoded, because it's recoded and we want to know. Here we have our question 2. So like I said, did before, I'm going to copy that, paste it down here, and we're just going to call this one Q2. Again, I'm going to copy, put it here. I'm going to call that Q3, and for our last one, copy, put that there, call this one Q4. Okay, so now that we have them all relabeled, this will be much easier. So what we want to do is we want to go down here, click on this, and we want to say a new computed variable. Our new computed variable is going to be called data analysis score. You can call it something shorter, and what this is average score on the data analysis survey. So if you go here to this function bar, you can actually scroll down and you'll see there's all different types of functions. What we want is mean, because we're going to average them. And then we're actually going to scroll in here and we're going to double click the mean so it pops up. And we're going to say we want Q1 recoded, comma, Q2, comma, Q3, comma, and Q4. Those are the ones that are going to be included. And then we're just going to hit enter. And what it did right here is it took them all and averaged them. Now this person, it didn't average because they didn't answer all the questions, and in that case you might not want to use their data. You might just want to delete them or just exclude them because you don't have the full picture and you really can't calculate their score, so it's okay that that happened. And now that we have this, we can see these are the people's data analysis scores. So in this case, the closer that a person is to 1, the less proficient they are in different data analysis skills according to my survey, and the closer they are to 5, so this person's a 4, the better they felt that they do with data analysis. So now if you want to run your different tests, you can see the other videos that I have previously posted, but this is how you transform your data to be numerical and how you go ahead and average your survey. Now each of your surveys may have different instructions for how to average them. They might have different numbers of negatively worded or positively worded questions, but when we have our separate meetings, then I'll go ahead and I will help you all navigate that, okay?